It's your one-stop shop for great wrestling. It's the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Ray Russell brings a host of great shows right to your device. There's the Wrestling Memory Grenade, Regional Wrestling, the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Amazing Puro Academy Show, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's long-running hit, Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the hilarious Other Ship podcast, and a whole lot more. Great shows and great guests, but where do you find all this stuff? Really simple. Try logging on to WrestleCopia.com. As I like to say, it's your one-stop shop for great wrestling memories. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. I'm Bob. 10 minutes from now, your staff announcer. In this edition, Brian R. Solomon, the great author, returns, and he's going to look at his favorite things in wrestling. But we're going to start off this episode with a look at this weekend's WrestleMania. You know, I got my 5 favorite moments from WrestleMania, my favorite matches of all time. You want to hear them? I'm telling you anyway. My first favorite, WrestleMania 3, of course, the classic, the legendary. Haiti Kid, Hillbilly Jim, and Little Beaver winning by disqualification over Big King Kong Bundy, Little Tokyo, and Lord Littlebrook. I just love watching them little bastards get smashed up. How about WrestleMania 11, another classic? Lex Luger and Davey Boy Smith beat Jacob and Eli Blue with their manager, Uncle Zebediah, Zebakane, Floyben. I don't remember how to pronounce his name. But it was an all-action thriller. My third favorite, of course, WrestleMania 7, Hulk Hogan beat Sergeant Slaughter. Oh, the end of that multi-international conflict that led to world peace. WrestleMania 36, that wonderful taped match, so innovative, when Bray Wyatt beat John Cena by, geez, I don't know how he beat him. Duh. And of course, from WrestleMania 35, one of the greatest moments when Baron Corbin beat Kurt Angle and made Angle retire. Such drama, such excitement. And of course, Baron Corbin went on to so many wonderful things. It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Oh, gosh, here comes Bob, and he doesn't look happy. Everybody, my name is Bob Smith. You might remember me from my old-time days at Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine, and this is the Outdated Wrestling Hour. I hope everyone is doing well. We got a big one here. We got Brian R. Solomon, two-time award-winning Wrestling Observer book guy, and he is going to talk about, well, the latest in our favorite things episodes. Going to put away our thinking caps and just remember stuff that we liked the best out of everything we've ever seen. Always a lot of fun. And Brian's a great guy with a great amount of experience. So this is going to be interesting, and I hope you enjoy it. We're going to start things off with the great Joe Puccio, our co-host. We're going to look at WrestleMania this weekend. And I can't say I'm excited about it based on the horrific angles and over angles that they've been doing. It's just, it's wearying. It hasn't been a lot of fun building up to this year's show. And if I was Cody Rhodes, I would sue for mismanagement. That's all I have to say. And LA Knight and a lot of other people. It's just getting crazy out there. So anyway, get yourself a nice beverage and maybe wash it down with some Cracker Jack. You know what Cracker Jack is, you young punks out there? Why, it's candy-coated popcorn, peanuts, and you get a prize. It's all glazed. Well, in any event, what do you know, you kids? Anyway, we'll take a minute. We're going to have just a little musical interlude here, and then I'm going to bring on the one and only Joe Puccio. We're going to talk about WrestleMania. Don't go anywhere. No, I told you not to go anywhere. Put your slippers on. You don't need shoes right now. It's that time of year again. Double headers in baseball. Yes, we're looking forward to. No, I'm kidding. It's WrestleMania season. And before we bring in our guest, Brian R. Solomon, who's going to talk about his favorite things, we're going to talk about, well, we have the rare luxury of coming on the day before WrestleMania weekend. And we're going to go through the whole card, make predictions, and generally take Pepto-Bismol as we read these things because neither of us are excited about it. And when I say neither of us, I'm referring to Jose. It's Joe Puccio, the co-host. All right, who's Jose? This one I don't get.
There's nothing to get there, Bob. That was just me being, I don't know.
Okay. I don't understand, but fine.
It doesn't always have to have a reason, right?
By the way, we're taping in the morning. We never tape in the mornings. I'm grouchy already. My McDonald's breakfast is already botched. One thing I do every morning just to clear my head is I take my newspaper and I go to McDonald's. And today it was a comedy of errors par excellence, you know. They have a thing called table service. Do you know this?
No.
If you have the McDonald's app, you can go into the McDonald's and have a seat at a table, right? Makes sense. Okay. Each table has a number on it. So you can place your order on the app, then they bring it to the table and you type in the number of the table and they bring it over. Usually. I've done this since I was working full-time, was grabbing a McDonald's meal quick, and half the time they're going, Bob? They don't even bother looking for the table number.
They don't look.
Half the time. Now, the other time they'll forget napkins, they'll bring something wrong.
Right.
Today was a comedy of errors. The guy comes over and goes, I had a Diet Coke. I'll go, okay, you still got the Coke Zero? I don't know. I'll get it for you. So he walks away, and I notice, there's no napkins on my thing either, right? So 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by, about 12 minutes goes by, nothing. So I go up to the counter and he's helping people. Here's another thing about modern McDonald's that bothers me. It's either kids or seniors eat at McDonald's, right? Because they have the senior coffee and all that stuff, right? And now they have brought these boards out, these big electronic boards where you make your order. And there's not a senior citizen alive that can figure out how to use these boards. They're staring at it. They don't know what to do. So they have an employee usually helping them out to get them through the purchase of what they're going to make.
Right.
Who do I see standing amongst about 18 people is the guy who said, I'll get the Coke. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. I go to the county. I'm waving at him. He finally comes around when he's finished with those people. And the Coke had been sitting there behind the counter the whole time.
Oh, so he just didn't bring it to you.
He just didn't bring it to me. He just forgot to bring it. And I know he wouldn't remember. And I went, it's been sitting there the whole time? I had to say it. So I go, thank you. And I bring it back. And then I go, can I have some napkins too? And he brings me the napkins. So that's it. I go back to my tray on the table where I was sitting and then realize there's no straw. And I said, I'm going to buck up, be a man and drink it without a straw.
Whoa.
Because, I'm that way. I'm masculine. I'm going to drink
a real man's man.
I know I'm going to drink my soda without a straw. In New York City proper, they do not allow plastic straws.
Yes, I do know that. It's so annoying because I hate those paper straws.
One sip and it's flat.
Yeah, it's like you're chewing on the straw all of a sudden.
Yes, yeah.
It's the stupidest thing.
Well, I understand it, but here's the thing. That's my breakfast adventure. I will say going to McDonald's is a wonderland of curiosity.
Do you get McDonald's breakfast every morning?
Usually, because I'm on this diet I'm on. And they have something that's calorically perfect for what my diet does.
Really?
I keep my calorie. And by the way, I'm kicking ass on the diet. Unbelievable. I'm probably down about 18 pounds now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good. It's going well. And my numbers are great. Everything's good. But McDonald's has this one dish, this one breakfast thing that I can have. I'm not going to eat a McMuffin and all that other stuff. And if you've ever looked at their breakfast platter, it's a whole day's worth of calories practically in one item.
Sure.
I'm not eating that. But I found this one item that I can have. So I go in and have the item and a Diet Coke, and I keep my caloric intake normal.
Okay.
And it's the only even remotely fatty thing I eat all day in terms of like excess fat. So it's been working because I'm shedding weight like a snake skin, baby. Woo!
So a couple of things about this I just want to get into. My wife and I just got back. We had to run a couple of errands and we went through the McDonald's drive-through just about an hour ago.
Are you serious?
And now I I'm not a huge McDonald's fan. She likes it. I had already had something small. I woke up earlier. I had a banana, I had a hard boiled egg, whatever. She hadn't eaten anything, so she's like, you know what? I'm just gonna get something quick out of the drive-through. I'm gonna get a whatever she got, a McMuffin, one of those things. So we went through. She got it. I just think it's funny because literally, I can't remember the last time we were at a McDonald's, and you're mentioning this today, and we literally just got back from there. That's the first thing. The thing I do want to point out that's even funnier about service and about apps. Real quick, my buddy, I was talking to him a few days ago over the weekend. He tells me this story. He's like, you're not going to believe this. He's like, I took my son to Chipotle. I don't know how to say that right. Whatever. Chipotle.
Let me do this. I worked with a guy who called it Chipotle.
Chipotle. No.
And I could feel my blood pressure rising. No, I can't even pronounce the real word. I'm so upset.
I know. So basically, I'll make this a short story. His son is a picky eater. So his son was craving I think it was an enchilada or something, burrito, one of the things from there. And he decided to take him for dinner just to go pick one up, pulls into the parking lot. Him and his son, they walk into the store, into the fast food place. Nobody in there. Literally, it was dead. Goes up to the register. And he says, yeah, I'm just going to take a burrito, whatever it was that he ordered. And the guy goes, oh, no, you can't order that in the store. You have to order that on the app. And he said, what do you mean I have to order it on the app? He's like, oh, there's certain items that we don't take in-person orders. So you actually have to order it on the app. So we're close to, it's not that far from April Fool's. And my friend thought that he was literally being punked. So he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't have your app. He's like, I just walked into this store and I just want to order something for my son. And he's like, I understand that, but you can't do that. He says, if you want to order it, he's like, if you have your phone, download our app. Once you download it, sign in, order it. And he's like, I'm here right now. The store is empty and there's nobody here. He's like, I'm not downloading the app. So he's like, can I speak to your manager? Manager comes out. Manager says, yeah, he's right. We can't serve you this way. You have to order it on the app. And my friend decided, in normal situations, he would have just walked out. But again, I guess it's because his son's a bit of a picky eater and he just wanted to get it over with. He wanted to get it and just have him eat it. And that was it. So my friends decided to say, okay, well, I lost my phone. I don't have my phone. I don't have a phone right now. I lost it yesterday. You're not going to serve me? He said the manager stared daggers at him. And the manager basically just said, fine. He walked away. He made it while still staring at him. He kind of threw it. He kind of tossed it onto the counter, rang him up, and he walked out. So I said, this says a couple of things. First of all, I'm not a big fast food guy anyway, but I will never, ever go into that place just because of that experience, because I think that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in the world. And second thing is, I think that just goes to show how crazy and how terrible something as small as that in this world, that you can't walk into a restaurant and actually order to a human being. To be staring at somebody in the face and be, hi, good morning. May I have this? Yes. Pay for it. You walk out and you're done. Now everything is going to be done on apps. What about if it was an 80-year-old person walking
There's
in
the thing at McDonald's. You can't, I don't even know if you can walk up to a counter and order verbally now. I don't know if that's done. Here's the deal too. You know what would eradicate all these problems at fast food? Pay the workers. Pay them a living wage. Nobody's making a living wage working part-time at McDonald's. Nobody. I don't want to be political, but well, it's a great starter job. Okay, great. It's a great starter job if you're 17 years old, mopping the floor at night. That's fine. But you know what? Enough's enough. As far as the Chipotle story you just told me, I don't know if I buy it on their part, because about a month ago, we went into one. And first of all, when you get a burrito, if it was a burrito he ordered, there are certain items you can pick and choose from what you want to put on the burrito. Your protein and your rice and whatever, and then a variety of vegetable cheeses and other things you get to put on, lettuce, everything. I just don't understand why they told him it was app only. I've never heard of that.
After my friend told me, we spoke about it. I was telling my wife about it, my in-laws, and we looked it up. And again, it's either a burrito or an enchilada. I forget which one, but the point is, it is true, because if you Google it, it does say that the majority of the locations will make you do it through the app, because they feel like it's going to avoid congestion in the store. Now, mind you, why that would only be limited to certain items, I don't understand. And again, I want to reiterate that the store was empty. There wasn't one person in the actual restaurant. So it definitely is true because we Googled it and we saw that it was something that people are talking about. But again, I feel like as serious as you can be with something like this, it is kind of crazy because if you think about it, what's going to happen in the future? I mean, is this just going to be the way of the future where you literally can't do anything face to face with someone, where everything's got to be behind an app? I mean, they're basically forcing you to download this app. If I was in that store, I would have walked the hell out of there. There's no way in hell they would have said, you have to stand there and waste time downloading an app, signing in, creating an account, and ordering it while you could just be making it. That's an issue for me.
So I will make the right turn and praise a company. I have purchased virtually everything that I use on this podcast at a chain of electronics called Micro Center. It's the exact opposite of what you're talking
I'm
about.
familiar with the
They have
place.
a
Yeah.
knowledge bar. They have friendly cashiers. There's somebody that's always walking around going, "Can I help you with something?"
Yep.
And they will give you the information you need. They will. One time I was going to buy an item that was, what's cool about it, they'll sell you stuff that's called what they call open box. Somebody bought it, didn't like it, didn't want it, brought it back. So they'll take a discount off on it and then resell it,
Mhm.
making sure that it works first.
Sure.
So I bought a couple of things like that, but I was looking at one item and the guy opened it up. He goes, "Oh, look at this." He says, "Somebody bent the heck out of this. I wouldn't buy this if I." The guy told me I wouldn't buy this if I were you. You just get a new one. I said, "You absolutely, you said it." But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why that chain is so great. And I'm always telling them it's my favorite store of any kind, more than any department store, more than anything else. It's a specialty retailer that's really special. It really is. So if you've never been to a Micro Center out there, look for electronics, if you're lucky enough to have one near you, go there. First of all, they're better than the old Radio Shack because if you're looking for a part,
Mhm.
a cable, a clip, I just bought an old cord for an iPhone, an old outmoded iPad, excuse me. The old lightning cable,
Sure.
they've just since went to the other kind that everybody's using, the Type C.
Yeah.
They have them there. They have everything
Yeah.
you can think of. They got mainframes to build your own computers. They've got the biggest gaming department in retailing. By the way, have you ever noticed gamers, how much they spend on gaming?
Oh, yeah. My niece is a big gamer.
I'm not talking about PlayStation. I'm talking about
No,
these
I know.
elaborate setups with
Yeah.
racing cars, and you're sitting in a. You could spend $6,000-7,000 on gaming.
It's crazy. I know.
It must be fun.
Prices are pretty reasonable too.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a perfect shopping experience
Yeah.
to get you in and out of there. It's like, and again, they have an app, and you could be, you can give them your phone number, and you can collect app points or something like that. But all I know is that it's great. So the microphone I'm speaking with, I bought at Micro Center. The cables that came with it, I bought
Yep.
at Micro Center. My Ethernet cable that I'm staring at now was at Micro Center. Everything is from Micro Center. There's the beauty part. If something goes wrong, everything's warranted to bring it back.
Right.
And for a nominal fee, they have their own store warranty on everything you buy. So if
Okay.
you want to give them an extra couple bucks on a $10 item and it breaks, you go back, they'll hand you another one.
That's great. Yeah, it really is. And it's great when you find a store like that.
Civility, try it.
Yes.
That we'll leave it at that. Anyway, back to the wrestling. Well, this weekend it's time for WrestleMania. It's April 18th and 19th, Saturday and Sunday. One of those 2-day extravaganzas again in Vegas, which was a cardinal mistake. Since they raised ticket prices to ungodly amounts of money, then most people have to fly to Vegas. Nobody lives in Vegas. Everybody that's there is a visitor.
Yep.
So while it's probably good for the Vegas Strip with all those hotels filled, I just think it's a mistake. They gouge people to a big extent. I read somewhere they did lower some ticket prices. And as I speak, about a week, it's about 10 days before the show, and they were still selling tickets. They are not sold out. So I'm hardly surprised.
I'm not really surprised either. And they've even been working this into some of their angles on television about it was CM Punk who is making comments about low ticket sales and kind of working it into the storyline. And I got to say, it's a good thing for fans. I mean, the ticket sales, at least they're publicizing and at least they're aware of this. Apparently, TKO is looking to lower the prices at least throughout the summer for different shows as sort of an experiment. And it's a good thing because, again, we always say this. It's like we complain about the prices. We complain about being priced out. But at the same time, you and I can complain about it. And if it's selling out and people don't care and people pay, who's the idiot? I mean, we're the ones complaining, but they're the ones making the money. They're the ones actually selling the seats. So if finally it's sort of leveling off, and they're actually not doing as well. And let's be real too. They're not low ticket sales. It's not like they're not bringing people in. It's just that they're not as high as the last few years. So I think it's a good thing for consumers because at least now maybe people are finally saying, I had enough. I'm not going to spend $150 for a crap seat.
I think the TKO thing has been bad. The TKO people have to realize that pro wrestling is not boxing or UFC. It's not. It's an entirely different audience. And these days, it's more of a family audience than it's ever been. Why would a family force spend $10,000 to go to a WrestleMania? Like I said, that money could go to a child's college fund. That's a lot of money. So it's gotten obscene, and I'll never agree with it. But then again, I'm one of those lucky schmoes who was into business and got ringside seats for free. When I was a sports writer, I sat courtside or in press box for free. I have seen so many things for absolute free that now that I'm a civilian, it's like, oh gosh, I got to pay this much for this. It just feels funny to me more than most people because I've been comped my whole life. And I admit it. It's something that the sports media never talks about. You're being comped to do everything you're doing. I mean, nobody ever looks at the fan perspective in terms of gouge on ticket prices. They just don't, and they should.
I agree. I mean, full disclosure too, I also, over the years, have gotten comms for different places I've worked for. When I used to be with Royal Flush and even with Generation X Wire, I get comped with certain things, not a ton of things, and it's different. I mean, it is true because sometimes you say to yourself, well, I'm so used to going to this show and doing a review and kind of covering it as press, and then you have to pay for it. It's a completely different ball game.
When you're there to cover something, you're using your analytic mind and taking notes, and you miss things, including enjoyment. When you're just sitting there and listening and watching and really getting in the groove for your favorite musical artist, it's a whole different ball of wax. So I've learned to accept that. So us spoiled professionals here. Let's go through both days of WrestleMania and determine what we like, what we don't like, and make silly predictions about what's going to happen. Saturday, in a match that was just added, and I think this will probably lead off the show, looking at the way they're promoting it. It's the Usos and LA Knight versus Austin Theory, Logan Paul, and generic rapper number 6. I'm sorry, I Show Speed. And this is another situation where I guarantee you 75% of the people watching wrestling have no earthly clue who I Show Speed is. Now, here's the thing. Another non-athlete getting in the ring. I'll say this. They were in a couple of spots where people were running toward him and he jumped over them on the arena. He was on the arena floor and literally jumped about 7 feet high in the air and came down. I said, oh, he's got some athletic prowess. Do I like it? No, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that, they just threw the Usos and LA Knight into this nothing burger of a match. I forget even what Heyman's people. I don't even know if Austin Theory and Logan Paul are with Heyman because Heyman hasn't been with them. He's been with Brock Lesnar lately. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's going on with all that. My prediction on the thing. By the way, I Show Speed is also a YouTuber and a streamer. Maybe I'll get booked next year. Anyway, my prediction is that...
could you leap as high as I Show Speed?
No, but I can crawl. All right, now, here's my prediction. I think I Show Speed's character has been kind of hedging at joining Theory and Paul. So I think he will turn on them, resulting in a win for the erstwhile good guys. What do you think?
I just saw the build for this recently. I can be completely honest here. I really have no idea who I Show Speed is. I see him in WWE, but I don't know. I know you said he's a YouTuber and I don't know what else. So I'm going in blind with him. Yeah, I'm going to go. I would go with probably, I know this is going to be one of the ESPN2 matches. It's going to be one of the kickoff matches. I know the first hour each night is going to be live on ESPN2 for anyone to watch. So with that being said, I would probably go with the Usos and LA Knight just as sort of like a feel-good win in their yen for Uso, and you can get the chant going, on ESPN2. It'll make for a nice video package. So I'll go with them.
Come on in, Ma, where there are yeetin' and yan. I'm sorry. All right. Yeah, that's it. And, it's a waste of the Usos in LA Knight, to be honest with you. I just can't believe that they've... Well, we don't know if that's the opening match, but you get the feeling it's the opening match, right?
Well, it's definitely one of the first 2 open matches. But, I'm not sure I agree as far as the waste, though, for them, because I feel like nowadays with the talent, with so much talent on the roster that they're trying to get into those 2 nights. It's almost like I think you gotta have sort of like some big stars as well in that first hour in those matches, because again, it's going to be on free television that first hour, and you want to get a lot of exposure. So it's like I agree, but I don't agree, because I think like you have to have a balance. You can't just put all the lower level, so to speak, talent in that first hour.
All right. The other match I have written down here, they're all written down. Unsanctioned. This one's unsanctioned. Whatever that means.
Does that mean blood?
Yeah, probably. It's Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu, and their raging feud where they're falling off of buildings and stuff, and the whole thing has been so corny and stupid, and I'm sick of Drew McIntyre whining about everything, literally whining. They did this to me, they did to me. And Jacob Fatu, I like. This better be an opportunity to put Fatu over big. It's time for him.
You think so? Yeah, I'm going to go with McIntyre on that one. I think.
Get out, really?
Yeah, I think in an unsanctioned match, I think he's been complaining and bitching about that he hasn't gotten respect and all this stuff. And again, I know they're pushing Fatu big. Yeah, my gut tells me that they would go with Drew in that one, some underhanded way of winning.
And don't forget, it's unsanctioned. They can hit each other with everything.
There you go.
From everything to the ring steps to hot popcorn butter. Everything is legal.
Does that include syringes?
Oh, don't even go there.
Hey, you said everything is legal. I mean, it's been seen in the other company.
That's the other company.
Right.
Although, the thing, what was it with CM Punk and McIntyre, we bashed him with the toolbox. I mean,
right.
Come on now. All right. Then we have a match that's just kind of thrown in there late. Gunther versus Seth Rollins. I got to go with Gunther. How can they stop that push of he's beating everyone? No one can beat Gunther. That is his shtick. Rollins can survive it. He can survive this. And I go with Gunther, long sleeper hold where he's trying to get out, and he'll finally tap just like Cena did. What do you think?
That's a good one, like as far as a pick 'em, because like you said, I agree. Gunther is someone, their gimmick is that he's not losing, he's beating everyone up, he's beating the legends, this and that. But at the same time, Rollins just came back, light the fire under him again. But I would tend to agree. Gunther is someone they don't want to lose at this point. So I think it's more important for him to win. Seth would be fine with a loss. So yeah, I would say Gunther.
Gunther. Women's World Championship. Stephanie Vaquer against Liv Morgan. I don't care.
Really?
I got to be honest. I don't care. I don't care. This one, listen, you know me. I love the women's division. I don't get the back here push, and Liv is played out. I'm sorry. I've had enough. I don't really care. It may even turn out to be a decent match because they're similar sizes. But overall, I'll watch. And if it's good, I'll go, wow, that was good. But who wins? I don't care. What do you think?
I agree that I liked Morgan a lot more in the beginning, but I am a little tired of her. At the time we're taping this too, there was some talk that she was in concussion protocol, Roxanne Perez, I think, because of an angle. But whatever the fact, if that match does take place, yeah, I would go with Vaquer to retain. I am a big Vaquer fan, Stephanie Vaquer. I think she's really good.
Then another women's, the Intercontinental Champion, the IC belt. Current champion AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch. I'm going with Becky. I think AJ is back and people are glad to see her, but she's going to be the Stan Stasiak of Women's Intercontinental Champion. I think she's transitional. I just think Becky isn't too important to the company to have her lose. And she's been losing a lot. She lost to Maxine Dupree and everybody else under the sun. So I think this is going to be a big comeback for Becky Lynch. What do you think?
My gut would say Becky would win the belt from AJ. I could see it just prolonging the feud, giving the heel the win, having Becky beat her, and then AJ's got to kind of wrestle her at the next show, whatever that is, and go for revenge. So I think it's enough. I think Becky's been losing too much. I think she'll take it.
Okay. The Undisputed Championship with, again, a build-up so bad. Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. Now with Diet Pat McAfee. I don't know what to say. You told me a few months ago that Triple H referred to McAfee as, quote, the face of WWE.
He did say, I think he said something to the effect of, I know a lot of people look at Pat McAfee as the face of WWE. I don't know who thinks that way, but, that's what he said.
I don't know what to make of it, but this is so knee deep and stupid. Again, I don't care who wins. I really don't care.
I have something to say about this just because I think those two could have a phenomenal match. Let's be honest. They're both great talents. It's, and every indication is that the match will be awesome. So I think we know that fact. As far as the buildup, I get it. They're trying to bring Pat McAfee in. I think it was a TKO decision. All the talk is whatever it is, why they're doing it. But didn't in the the first promo when Randy got that supposed phone call, he was talking and he said something like, there's more than one royal family in pro wrestling. And they basically built it up to where you thought it was going to be another family. So,
No, I thought it was going to be Bob Orton Sr.
well, what's funny is when he first said that, that's the first thing that popped in my mind. I was like, oh man, imagine Bob Orton Sr. comes back. Because remember, he used to be with him early in his run, but I guess he's kind of up there in age now. But again, I don't know if they were trying to bring a McMahon aspect to it, maybe have Stephanie. I don't know if it was a McMahon aspect. I don't know if the original intent was going to be one of the McMahons, because again, he specified royal family. If they were going to bring in, I don't know, take your pick, any family in wrestling, whatever it was. So where does Pat McAfee tie into this? The only thing I could assume is that they just decided to go in a different direction.
It doesn't happen. The WWE is now the old AWA, where they would start something and change it and on the fly, and it was obvious that they couldn't get somebody to do something, or TKO didn't like it or something, so they went in another direction. So the whole thing is wrapped in such a vast amount of stupid that they have ruined Cody Rhodes. WWE has ruined Cody Rhodes. He's always fighting from behind. He's always getting attacked. He's always being left prone somewhere.
Yeah.
He will never be remembered as a great champion, because great champions aren't staring at the lights all the time. And it's all he does, from being beat up on buses to sneak attack by Orton and all this other stuff over and over and over. They ruined him.
Yeah.
And not to say he's not a good performer or anything like that, but who takes it seriously now that he's like an unbeatable champion? Nobody. So I don't really care. If I had to make a prediction, I'd say Orton takes it through nefarious means from McAfee.
Oh, well, that's the other thing, right? Isn't the stipulation now, McAfee said that if Orton loses, you will never, ever see me on WWE television again. So I don't know if that's a spoiler, as in he doesn't want to do WWE anymore, because I know there's been talk about that his schedule is so busy. So maybe this is a way to kind of get him out of there, or if it literally means that, Orton's going to win the belts. Who knows? But yeah, those two guys, they have a history together. They have a wrestling history together. So, I mean, it could have been such a nice old school feud. And again, I don't have any problem with Orton going heel in this one, because I think Orton's a way better heel. I love that he's, tearing everybody up, running over everyone. So I do like that aspect of it, because if he didn't do that, if you think about it, the two main events for both nights would have been 4 baby faces. So I guess that is a nice twist. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a little underwhelming because of this whole McAfee thing. I hope it's one and done. I hope after WrestleMania that they sort of write McAfee out.
My final comment on this is that Pat McAfee is entertaining as a pine idol cyst on the spine. I just, no. It just, all right, let's go to the last. There's one more match on Saturday. It's a fatal 4-way for the women's tag team title. Nia Jax and Lash Legends are the champions, and the other teams are Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, and the Bella Twins. I'm going to make an outrageous prediction. It's going to be the Bella Twins coming on top because everybody hates them.
Oh, boy. I don't know. Flair and Alexa
The
Bliss.
reaction to the Bellas coming back hasn't exactly been overwhelming.
No,
and I think they're going to ram them down our throats.
It hasn't. I mean, I think they'd be better used as heels, honestly. And you don't get to say that about, I was going to say legends. They're not legends, but I mean, they're obviously legendary figures in WWE speak. I mean, people have these fond memories of them when they were around. So it's hard a lot of times when people like that come back and people don't want to boo them. But in this case, it seems like people do want to boo them. So I think they might as well go with it and go heel. But I don't know. If I had to make a pick off the cuff, I would just go with Flair and Bliss to win the belts. But again, it's really, it doesn't matter anyway.
Oh my gosh, I was zoning. You said Flair. I thought you were going to say Flair and Valentine or something. Go back to the 80s when things were simpler and more fun. Sunday. All right, let's go to day number 2. First thing they listed today was, it's on Sunday the 19th, I should say, available wherever you get your things. Oma Femi versus Brock Lesnar. Put over Oma. Brock's had his time. I don't want him to win. I want him to dominate. What's your thought on this?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? Because it's sort of like old school versus new school. Yeah, you got to think they're going to go with Oba in this one. I mean, he's the one they're pushing. He's sort of like, in a way, he's like the new Brock. The only way I could see Brock winning would be if they want to extend it and they want to, go to another show and have them wrestle again. But the obvious pick, I would agree. I would say Oba Femi.
Oba, gotta go over.
There you go.
Boom, boom. Hey.
Although I will say, can I just say, I really, that dance, that sort of like strut that he does to the ring, it really irks me. To me, it just doesn't fit his character.
Irks you, but every little kid in the audience is doing it. And that's the best thing about the Usos being a tag team again. Nobody's yeeting anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe they determined that it's enough yeet.
Yeah, hopefully.
But no, I still think Oba's going over.
Yep.
Hey, please tip your waitress. She works so hard for you. We have a ladder match for the Intercontinental title with a bunch of young whippersnappers and one oddball pick. Penta, who's the champion, Rey Mysterio making a comeback, Javon Evans, Dragon Lee, J.D. McDonough, and Rusev?
Yeah. Well, which one of these doesn't belong?
And that's why I'm picking Rusev to win. I'm serious.
Oof, yeah.
It just seems so out of place and goofy a pick. It'd be like having The Miz or something like that. I just think it's going to be Rusev. It makes no sense. That's why I like my pick, and I'm going to stick with it. And if I go on the Vegas bet line and he would win, I bet you that'd be a bet in Vegas.
No, it's funny that you said that. I was thinking about this match before you started mentioning it, and I agree. I think Rusev's going to take it. I know that they haven't been doing too much with him since he returned, and I think this is the perfect opportunity for them to give him a push, put a belt on him. And again, I think it's like the oddball pick in a general sense because you wouldn't expect him in a ladder match, but I think that's what the twist is going to be, so to speak, of that match. I agree. I say Rusev goes over.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Then we have the champions for the World Championship, whatever they call it. The other one is the Universal. This one's whatever it is. It's Punk versus Reigns. Wow. Because of the transient nature of Reigns, I think Punk's going over just because I don't think Reigns has any interest in a full-time gig and defending championships all over the place. So I'm going with Punk. It should be interesting. It should be a good match, too. This, out of all of them, I like to build up to this one the best. I think they're doing a decent job making them, despise each other before the match.
Well, let me say, I do agree with the build-up has been good. The promos have been pretty strong on each side. I wish sometimes they'd be a little bit abbreviated. Sometimes the promos go on for a bit, and it seems like every week they're each doing their own promo, so it gets to be a little bit tiresome. But overall, I agree. I think they're doing a nice job there. I'm gonna go with Reigns on this one. I think Reigns takes it. I don't really have a reason. I know what you're saying about the full-time schedule. Just something tells me that they would put over Reigns to win the belt in this match.
Then we have the women's title. Jade Cargill, the current champion, against Rhea Ripley. I have to give you your props about something. A long time ago, I defended Jade Cargill. I can't defend her anymore. She has done nothing to get herself over in all this time. I don't even understand the way they're booking her now. She's got a posse behind her like everybody else does, right. Generic posse. Rhea's going to kick her butt, and the fans are going to go nuts. Rhea back with the belt. She's really the standard bearer and should have a belt for a long time. They won't because nobody keeps a belt for a long time anymore. Mm-hmm. But Rhea, I think, needs to be recrowned the champion.
Definitely agree. I say Rhea takes it. I would hope that they're aware that it really hasn't been too successful with Cargill as champion. I don't know what else to say about that, but I would definitely think they would put it back on Rhea Ripley. And Cargill was better in AEW. I thought like the whole unbeatable monster gimmick that she had there was done better. Here, I think she's floundering. I don't think people really care about her. I would think Rhea would win, and I hope Rhea wins because I think both you and I are big fans of Rhea Ripley.
Jade, impressive physique and everything else, but she's so bland on the stick. She just doesn't have that it factor in terms of even being hated. I had to throw a posse on her because she wasn't getting over. In my mind's eye, anyway. So, yeah, it's Rhea's time again. U.S. title, Sami Zayn versus Trick Williams. I think Trick Williams wins, which will perpetuate this slow turn of Sami Zayn into an out of control, out of his mind, crazy person. Because they've started that before he won that belt. He was acting really loony. I think he's going to go completely bonkers once he loses to the popular Trick Williams.
I agree. I was thinking the same thing. I know they're doing that slow burn of a turn for Sami Zayn, where he's eventually going to go heel. And I'm looking forward to that. I think I really want to see him as a heel. And I wasn't sure if they would take the belt off of him quickly, but I feel like that's the only way to do it. You have Trick beat him, win the belt, and that advances the storyline. It advances his involvement into a heel. So I would go with Trick Williams on that one.
Now, here's my spoiler result. It's not a spoiler. This is just a vibe I have. Zayn goes over. This is my number 2 pick. I'm still picking Trick if it's a normal match. If it's not a normal match, this is what's going to happen. Sami Zayn will win with an assist from Kevin Owens. You can't break them apart. Those guys are like eternal, whether they're fighting each other or they're with each other. I think maybe it's time for KO to make a surprise appearance. So this could go any number of ways. I'll stick with Trick going over, but we shall see. Every WrestleMania has a surprise or two. And so far, we've been thinking in terms of like a regular match. There's no such thing as a regular match anymore. 80 people get involved. And the final thing that's kind of been tacked on here is Dominic Mysterio versus Finn Balor in a grudge match. It's got to be Finn. They got to rebuild him. I think that's the whole reason for the split up there is to rebuild Finn Balor. And I think he's going to come out as that demon character or whatever they call it. You remember how he puts the makeup on and all that stuff?
He is. They did officially announce that it's going to be the demon Finn Balor.
Right. Bob, you're such a purist. No, face paint has been part of wrestling going back to the Road Warriors and stuff. The Road Warriors put it in vogue and then everybody started doing it. It doesn't bother me. But it's unnatural. Well, so was the Mummy in the 70s. I mean, come on. It is what it is. You know, that should be a good match too. If you strip away all the fake drama, just athletically, that should be a really keen match.
Sure. I don't think there's any match you could really say is gonna be a stinker. Like, I don't think there's one match where you can say, oh, this is going to be just awful. How can they do that? And that's more just because I don't think most of the talent that they have now are good talent. What are there, 6 or 7 matches each night? And you know it's going to be like 4 or 5 hours or whatever it is each night. And I know that sounds like, well, every match is going to go 20 minutes, 25 minutes. No, because we know it's going to be video package after video package after celebrities in the crowd. And
they usually bring out the Hall of Famers.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole big deal. So who knows how much time there's actually going to be for each of these matches. But yeah, that should be a good match.
Nothing attracts more controversy than the picks of the Hall of Famers. I think people are getting kind of confused as to some of the Hall of Famers they're picking, like Bad News Brown.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think he's going in the regular. I think he's going in the legacy part or something. I don't even think they show up. I just think it's, they may. I don't know how they're working it now.
No, I think you're right. I think it's him and also Sid Vicious, right? Yeah. Sid is also in the legacy. I think from what I remember from years past, it's just a mention. They have a clip for the person, but I don't think they're part of the actual ceremony. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. There are enough people in that Hall of Fame. And let's say it one more time. They should have a physical Hall of Fame. They could count their money. They could even have it in New York City. I think it would be so popular. Mm-hmm. As long as they sell stuff too. Like if it's a combination store and Hall of Fame, I think it would be a brilliant idea. And there's no way it would fail. If those places with the $1 pizza and the 10 for $1 postcards can stay open, I think there can be a WWE Hall of Fame and store in Manhattan. I really do.
Yeah, we talked about it. That would be so cool. I would love to see it. Who knows? I mean, as far as the Hall of Fame itself, yeah, it's this. I always felt like they kind of like shot their load early on with that Hall of Fame, because if you remember the early years of it when it really was famous, remember those years where guys like Hogan and Piper and all the 80s stars were being put in every year? They put in so many people. Like every year it was like 10 people. And I was like, how are they going to sustain this every year if they're putting in so many people at a time? You don't have to put in that many people. You could have put in 3 or 4 people each time. Give them time to make nice speeches. Don't rush it and just have it more of a big event feel. But instead, they just kind of put in so many people where that's what happened. Then years later, all the 80s guys were pretty much, for the most part, I know there's a few that haven't been put in, but for the most part, all the big stars from that era were put in. And then they started with the 90s guys. And now you're running into the issue where guys are working for AEW or the different companies and you can't come in, Again, to me, why even make Sid and Bad News Brown legacy? Sid Vicious specifically, he was a big star in WWE for a few years there. So it's like, why sort of like pigeonhole yourself into he's the legacy wing? So let's not even give him a ceremony. I mean, people remember Sid.
I don't know how they're going to, to be honest, I don't know how they're going to handle it, and I've stopped watching those things.
Oh, you don't even watch the Hall of Fames?
No. With a 2-day WrestleMania wrapped around, how am I going to watch that? Oh, no, I have a life.
You don't have 5 extra hours to spare?
No, I don't. No, think about it. Listen, I love the old school wrestlers more than anybody, but I don't have that much free time. If I am going to be sitting in a side room, because I'm the only one in my family that likes wrestling, if I'm going to be sitting in a side room 10 hours over a Saturday and a Sunday, I can only watch so much. Unless they put it on ESPN or something as a singular thing that they will rerun. Yeah, I'll look at it in retrospect. I'd love to do that. But during that weekend, no. And absolutely no pre or post games either. Forget it. I've never watched one. I never will.
Oh, yeah. I know you're not a fan of those. Yeah. And the WrestleMania ones, the WrestleMania pre-shows, they go like at least 2 hours. I feel like last year they even did I could be wrong here, but for something tells me they did 3-hour pre-shows last year, and I could be just misremembering this, but I think they did.
It's like the Super Bowl where they start the pre-games on a Thursday.
Crazy. I know.
It's what it is. You get overkill. And you know who's getting overkill right now? It's Brian Arselm, who's sitting in the green room just drinking coffee like it's going out of style.
Sorry, Brian.
We have to get Brian out here. Joe is the proprietor of Generation X Wire. If you love the 80s, it's the place to go. But not just the 80s, any old school stuff, right? Land of the Lost Boy.
Sure. It's not just the 80s at all, 70s, 80s. And the thing is, we even are trying to do some more semi-current stuff, depending on the subject. Dave Sahadi, the producer from TNA, WWE, and so many other companies. He's with Real American Wrestling now with Eric Bischoff. Olivia Edward, young actress who was on the FX show Better Things. Michael Learned from the Waltons, played the mom on the Waltons. So lots of different things coming up. And I am actually in the process. It's just been hard to get our schedules aligned. Been going back and forth with Ken Patera.
That would be very interesting indeed. Absolutely. Remember, it's generationxwire.com. Thank you again for co-hosting and doing this little soiree about WrestleMania. We never get an opportunity to do a preview. And I figured just because of the timing of this and the fact that I am stockpiling shows like a madman. I have surgery coming up in June. And I got a lot of shows in the can. And the thing, too, is that I really got to do like another month's worth just to be on the safe side. I got to do 4 like shows that we can put aside and then plug in, because it's like I don't want to miss a Friday. And I will not miss a Friday. I want to let you all know we will be here every Friday just like normal. Joe, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I had a great time as always. And yeah, I agree. It was nice to give a little preview of WrestleMania. If nothing else, it should be fun, should be interesting, and it'll be something to talk about next time.
Well, like I always say, man does not live by Don Leo Jonathan alone. I'll leave it at that. We'll be back in about 50 seconds. Well, this is going to be, I don't know if they've all aired yet, but this is going to be, I believe, the 5th in our My Favorite Things podcast. And I want to introduce, once again, returning to the show, Silvano Souza. What? Who?
Wait a minute. That would pop you, Bob.
This is Brian Arselm, and it says, now why would that pop me?
Because he's a classic 70s and 80s WWF jobber. So I thought, you'd remember the name.
Do you know he once got a push in the Al Tomko promotion?
Oh, I know. He actually, I think he owned his own promotion too, or I might be confusing with someone else. He was a promoter. I mean, some of these guys did a lot more than what they did on WWF television, for sure.
I will say this about Silvano Souza, and I mean this with all sincerity. If you remember, he used to have gangly curly hair, and then he shaved it all off. At around that point, he was a better wrestler. He really could hold his own in terms of looking professional, and he had a match against Atlas on TV where he busted Atlas open.
Maybe the hair was holding him down.
That's not all really, but and you know what my favorite Silvano Souza memory? It's an article written by Don Liabel, I think in Ring Wrestling or something like that. I don't remember the magazine, but this was the title of this article. This is back when he was a WWF jobber. Wrestlers beware. Silvano Souza is on your trail.
How do you write that?
And I laughed then, and I still laugh to this day as the most unintentionally funny wrestling magazine title I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Silvano Souza?
I can't imagine writing that with a straight face. The only reason I would imagine he'd be on your tail is if he needed gas money. That would be about it.
Oh, that's cruel. Cruel.
I
But
did a story years ago. I got to dig it up for Raw Magazine. I did a story all about enhancement guys, and I listed all the best remembered ones, and we did a whole thing about it, and it was so much fun. It actually got one of the biggest responses to any article I ever did.
everybody is very nostalgic about those enhancement guys.
Yeah, there's one, somebody explained it to me this way, and I understand it more. In the territory days, the jobbers were like the home team because everybody else would come and go. They were in and out. And a lot of the job guys, they just stayed there. So they'd be the guys week in, week out that you'd see wrestling more often than anyone else. You know, they didn't, I mean, even though they traveled too, but more or less, a lot of them just kind of stayed put in whatever territory they were.
You know, as I always say far too often on this podcast, I grew up watching wrestling in an armory where they would have 5 or 6 match cards, but the ticket prices were very low and they would only have name wrestlers on 2 of the 6 events.
Right.
But they would let the preliminary guys go at it against each other as the openers, and that showed that they could really work. I remember Steve King impressing the heck out of me in a match like that. Pete Doherty too.
Yeah.
Some of these guys could really go.
They could. I've talked about this where I'll be watching an MSG card from years and years ago, and a lot of times I'm more interested in those matches. Like now, watching it now, I saw one. It was Rene Goulet versus CV Afi. Okay.
Okay.
It was probably the best match on the show, I hate to say.
Yes.
They're just really good.
I went to a card once that had Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Snuka, Ray Stevens, and other top stars on it. And I swear the best match was Pretty Boy Larry Sharp versus Rene Goulet in the opener. It was a 20-minute draw, and it was great.
Those guys are consistently great. This is the thing people forget. In the modern era of wrestling, you always think about, and I think this started in the 90s with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and I get it, and those kind of guys. Modern fans, they always think like the guys at the top should be the best performers. And that's not really the way it traditionally was. The best performers would be the guys that put everybody over because they had to rely on those guys. And a lot of times your top guys were not the greatest performers in the ring athletically and physically, but they just, they had charisma, they had star power, they were good talkers, and they needed these workhorses, these carpenters to reliably get them over. So it's, I hate to say, in the old days, guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit, and Jericho and all those, they would have been the underneath guys.
Absolutely true. There's no question about that because, the way people promote now is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the old days, Sami Zayn wouldn't get near a main event. I'm not putting him down for that. I'm just saying a guy like that would never get near a main event. It just wouldn't happen.
It's true. And that's, that's the case in a lot of things. The business has changed so much. These smaller guys we see, especially a guy like Kevin Owens, who's not small, but, who has a very kind of nondescript look. He would probably be an enhancement guy, those kind of things. But that's in everything. I remember somebody telling me once, this always stayed with me, how, even in the 60s and 70s in movies, the movie stars changed in terms of what they were looking for and how guys that in the past would have just been character actors in supporting parts became leading men. People like Steve McQueen, Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, those kind of guys would be sort of like the henchmen of the evil scientist. You know what I mean? And then but now because movies changed, they became able to carry a movie on their own, So it's, we see that a lot.
Everything has changed. Everything continues to morph into something else. So what can I say? So anyway, the reason we have you here is, like I say, it's my favorite things. Now, as you know, and I buried the lead here, congratulations once again on the two-time Wrestling Observer Book of the Year award. It's well-deserved. The books are Irresistible Force, The Life of Times, and Gorilla Monsoon, which is the newest one, and the older one is Blood and Fire, the incredible real-life story of wrestling's original Sheik. I hope I remember that correctly off the top of my head.
Well,
Did
it's
I do that well?
unbelievable, not incredible.
Unbelievable, excuse me. Okay. But, it's, they're by my, here's the best compliment I can give you. They're on my book stand next to my bed.
Thank you.
And I still refer to that Sheik book all the time, thinking about the amazing amount of, the reason I like both books is if you want the nitty gritty of the territory days, these are the books, because it's like, there's so many nuggets of history about not just WWF, but all the territories in those books.
I really try to indulge myself when I'm writing those books. It's just, I think part of it is just to keep my own interest, because I like to think about that whole world, the whole environment, everything that was going on at the time. And to me, it's part of, evoking the time period to give the feel of everything that was happening in the business, but with this one person at the center of it, whether it's the Sheik or Gorilla Monsoon or whoever else.
There you go. And, but for now, strip away your put your professional cap in the closet.
Okay.
I want to talk to Brian R. Solomon, the fan.
All
Just
right,
the
I'm
fan.
here.
The stuff that got you into it, the stuff you loved when you were younger, the moments you liked best. It's about a dozen questions here. None of them are hard. None of them are personal.
Okay.
You're not going to the doctor. I don't need your blood pressure. What I may raise your blood pressure, but that's another story. But in any event, it's just your memories of stuff. And
Yeah.
I think people will find this as fascinating as your writing, because hopefully you'll come up with answers you haven't given anybody else on some of these questions. So you ready to start?
I'm ready.
All right. Brian R. Solomon, he's sitting in the hot seat. The hot lamp is on his face. Here we go. What's the first card you ever went to?
The first card I ever went to was Madison Square Garden. How's that? I mean, who could say that? A lot of people can't say that. Madison Square Garden, July 1987. My grandfather.
You're so young. God.
Well, I was 12. I was going into the 8th grade. So I wasn't like a baby or anything. Like we've said before, I came to wrestling a little bit later than a lot of kids did. But my grandfather took me. And it's funny, my grandfather was, as we know, I talk about him a lot. He was a big boxing guy. He had been a boxer. And, sometimes he sort of like looked sideways at wrestling. It was kind of a joke. But I think about it now, he humored me. He really did. And he found it really amusing that I was such a wrestling fan. And he took me to New York City, Madison Square Garden. I'll never forget the day. And the main event was not Hulk Hogan. He was on the road at the time. So I guess we got the B show. Because the main event, imagine that, the B show at the Garden. The main event was Ricky Steamboat against the Honky Tonk Man. And the Honky Tonk Man had just won the IC title, so Steamboat was trying to get it back. I remember that being on the card. I remember the last match was British Bulldogs against the Hart Foundation, which is incredible. And it also had the WWF Madison Square Garden debut of Ravishing Rick Rude. And that was my first card.
Very good.
Been all downhill from there.
So you're 12 years old. You're leaving the arena. Were you thinking what I was thinking when I saw my first card? I can't wait to come back.
Yes. But the funny thing was, I didn't go back to the Garden for 3 years. And part of that was because I got away from wrestling for a couple of years. When I started high school, I want to say from late 88 until about mid 90, late 90, I kind of walked away from wrestling for a short time. I got distracted by high school, distracted by girls, and I came back to it. And as soon as I got back into it, I went back to the Garden because my next show was, I think, October 1990. But in between, I went to a local WWF show. You know how we've talked about how they used to have those little C shows at the youth centers and the Catholic high schools and stuff. I went to one of those in 88. But yes, I mean, I definitely... Thinking back on it now, I wish I had gone to the Garden more often in those days to see a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I remember my first event at the Garden. I was in upstate, or like in Catskill, New York. And my first event when I was just old enough, like around 18 or so, was in 77. Because then I had a friend who drove, and, it was a whole different thing. We drove there and spent the night in Manhattan and then came home the next day. But, I was too young to go to the Garden. And we didn't really have the financial resources to do something like that when I was a kid. So
it's funny because I think about how I was around, I was a little kid. Like, I could have gone to the Garden to see Bob Backlund and all that stuff. Like, I was there, I was around. They'd lifted the under 14 ban. I think that went away in the late 70s. I just wasn't into wrestling. The funny thing was, I went to the Garden a lot in those days because we lived in New York City. So my parents would take me to the circus every year. We'd go, I think I saw like Ice Capades or Disney on Ice, those kind of things when I was a kid. I went to they would have movies at the Felt Forum. If you remember those days, they would actually show a movie at the Felt Forum.
Yeah.
And in fact, I have a picture that I've posted of my mom taking me to Madison Square Garden to see the circus. And it's like sometime in 1977. And I did the research and I found out that basically the week before that or after, it was the last world title defense that Bruno Sammartino ever had at the Garden. Again, it was against Baron von Raschke. And I could have gone to that potentially if I was, a wrestling fan, but I was only 3 years old and I think they still had the kiddie band. But I mean, it's weird to think I was around. I just wasn't into wrestling yet.
That's the way it works, yeah. All right. Younger Brian Solomon, your favorite wrestler, just your favorite overall wrestler growing up.
My favorite wrestler when I first got into the WWF in the late 80s was Randy Savage. Randy Savage was the man to me, and especially when he turned good in late 87, it was kind of like what I was waiting for. I loved him, and I remember because I'm a kid and I'm thinking like, boy, I really wish that he would. I didn't really know how to explain it at the time, but I really wish he would turn good. Like I knew that guys kind of changed their behavior and went from good to bad and bad to good. And then he did. I always thought I was not a Hogan kid. I hate to say, I got tired of him very quickly. To me, Savage had the edge and he was cooler and he was more entertaining. His promos were great and he was a great worker in the ring. I was a huge Randy Savage fan. When they put the title on him at WrestleMania 4, to me, it was like a dream come true because at that point, I had only seen Hulk Hogan as the champion. So it was really cool to see someone else with the belt. And on top of that, it's my favorite guy. I mean, that was perfect. So yeah, Randy Savage was my first favorite wrestler when I first became a fan.
I'll just chime in with this. When Hogan won the belt, I was excited.
Yeah.
I thought he would bring excitement and a kind of a tougher.
And he did.
Tough guy aura to the championship. But once Cookie Cutter, and here come all the cartoon villains, leg drop 1, 2, 3 for months and months and months, I grew tired of it very quickly.
Well, that was me. So, I was fascinated by him in the beginning. When I first started watching, it was Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. I mean, that's what made me a fan. And I would have to say, even by the end of the year of 1987, I was already sick of the guy. I can't even describe it and I hardly ever saw him wrestle because, as you know, in those days, he never wrestled on TV. So it started to feel so repetitive, his act. And I started to feel what the pattern was like. Okay, there's another monster heel coming in. He's going to lose. There's no way Killer Khan's going to win the title. There's no way One Man Gang's going to win the title. There's no way, and I started getting tired of him and looking for somebody new. And that was right when Savage came into view because he turned good somewhere in the fall of 87 on Saturday Night's Main Event. And boom, he was my favorite guy. I also loved Bam Bam Bigelow around that time. He was very exciting to watch when they brought him in as a babyface with Oliver Humperdinck, of all people.
Time is underrating Bigelow.
Yes, I think so. It's like people remember Vader a lot more than Bigelow. And to me, I really felt like they were pretty damn close in terms of being talented, athletic big men. They were really close.
I remember Crusher Yurkov.
Oh, wow.
That was Bigelow in World Class.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Managed by Larry Sharp, the guy who trained him.
Yep, that's right. And then I think I remember reading somewhere that when they first brought him into the WWF, initially there was consideration of maybe making him be the next top guy. There was actually a thought about that. And you could feel it when he first came in, the giant push that he got, but it didn't last long. It really did. It just didn't last long.
No, it's true. So we know your favorite wrestler, but does that mean it was your favorite good guy?
My favorite hero. Well, I mean, because Savage turned heel eventually, which was very disappointing to me. My favorite, you know what? I would have to go forward a little later for that because in the early 90s, when I was a little older, I was like high school age, heading towards college. Then my favorite wrestler became Bret Hart. And it was after the Hart Foundation broke up, when he was starting to get that singles push. After WrestleMania 7 in 91, when he was they positioned him for the Intercontinental title. And then a year later, he was in the world title picture. Again, that was one of those situations where it was feeling like the guy who's my favorite wrestler is now getting the big push. And it was very exciting. And he was a good guy. To me, he was like a throwback to the old school champions and top guys. And in a way, even that WWF had not had since they'd gone national. He was obviously more colorful than somebody like a Bob Backlund and people like that. But in terms of like the bell rings, and this is a guy who gets down to business and just works circles around people and beats people up and makes it look good. And he's serious about what he does. I was that perfect age, 17, 18, 19. That's what you want. You want like the serious, tough guys. And he epitomized that for me. That's also why I was way more of a Bret Hart guy than a Shawn Michaels guy. But so he would be kind of like my favorite good guy of my young years as a fan, I would say.
The Bret Hart title reign was the first stone in changing wrestling from cartoonish to more athletic and more realistic. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and I think it was conscious. It was sort of like a decision of, okay, the steroid era is over. We have to think of something else. We need people that are just damn good workers and great wrestlers. And he kind of epitomized that. I always felt that Vince never put his full confidence in him the way he should have. He had that window from 92 to 97 where he was a top guy in the WWF and he was a regular main event guy and in the title picture. But I never felt that he had Vince's full confidence. Like during that period, he should have dominated way more than he did. But instead we got Diesel, baffling decision. We got Yokozuna as a heel champ holding it way longer than he should have, honestly. We got Lex Luger, which was a flop.
Mm-hmm.
Shawn Michaels a little bit later on.
Well, Luger never got the belt, did he?
No, but I mean, like in the position to be that top guy.
Right.
Like it was almost like they tried out Bret Hart in late 92 and 93, and it was almost like Vince was saying, nah, all right, it didn't really work. This Luger guy is more like Hogan. Let's go with him. And so there were all these years. The only person in that window, 92 to 97, that I thought was worthy of having a back and forth with Bret Hart would be Shawn Michaels. Like that really should have been their time. And as much as it's remembered now as being their time, it really wasn't in the same way that it was Hogan's time and Austin's time and Cena's time. It was much more of like a mix and match during those years. I always felt like Bret Hart deserved better than what he got.
And then he went to WCW and got worse.
I know. And then he went to WCW, and then I started thinking, boy, it was way better before. Could he go back, please?
Absolutely true. All right, now, there's your good guy. There's your favorite wrestler. What about that bad guy that got you all mad? Who was that be?
Oh, boy. It was the Honky Tonk Man.
When
I first got into wrestling as a kid, that guy, I really wished grievous harm on that man. There were a couple of reasons. One was I really liked Ricky Steamboat, and I was excited to see him get the IC belt at WrestleMania 3. Even though I liked Savage, it was exciting. I liked Steamboat a lot, and I didn't understand the politics and the backstage stuff. All I know is he's got the belt. They did this whole exciting build. Ricky Steamboat, oh my God, he's going to do it. He does it. And then 2 months later, he loses it to this complete buffoon cartoon character. Just a complete buffoon. And not only that, but the complete buffoon holds the title longer than anyone's ever held it. And, looking back on it now, it's brilliant heel stuff. But God, I just kept going, why is this happening? When is this man going to lose? And the thing about it was, I think the key to the Honky Tonk Man, why he worked so well, was the greatest thing he did was he never let on that people hated him. He acted like he thought everybody loved him. He never got mad at the fans. He never jaw-jacked with the fans. He never seemed to get frustrated when they were booing him. He acted like everyone was cheering for him and loved him. And it made him that much more hateable that he did that. It was just so perfect.
I have a theory about Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah.
And once I say this, I think you'll agree with it. Strip away the guitar and all the hokum that we all hated. We hated the song. We hated the Cadillac, Peggy Sue, all that stuff. But his matches were exactly like heel Jerry Lawler's matches.
And we know why. We can understand why, right?
Right. But, hold the ropes for a pin.
Yes.
Sneak something in the ring, when the ref isn't looking. The traditional heel Jerry Lawler style. And I think they just... Wasn't Lawler supposed to get that role or something? I mean, if you go back through history, was there talk of Lawler... Was Honky Tonk Man a replacement for Lawler?
Well, you have to imagine, I don't know so much, but in those days when Vince was cherry picking the territories, right? You have to imagine that there had to be some interest in Lawler, right? I mean, there
Yeah.
had to be. The same way we know there was interest in Flair, even though he didn't get him at that time. There just had to be. And I don't know, maybe it almost makes you think, you know how I've heard that Bruiser Brody, you know, they were thinking of getting him and he was going to be basically what became the Berserker, which is depressing to think about. Many years later, they tried to get Samoa Joe and he was going to be what became Umaga and they just gave it to a different guy. I wonder now, and I'm just thinking out loud, maybe people know this, if maybe Jerry Lawler might have been what Vince had in mind as the Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah.
You know, the way he just shamelessly would repackage people, I wouldn't put it past him, you know?
Yeah.
And instead it became his cousin, who now looking back on it, I could see he was this classic Southern heel. Like, you know what I mean? And you see how good he was in Memphis and Georgia and things like that.
Mhm.
And you understand, right? Like you said, why he was so good at building that heat the way he did.
Throwing a monkey wrench into my thought is the fact that Honky Tonk Man was literally Honky Tonk Wayne up in Canada before he even came to the WWF. So maybe I'm full of beans, but I'm just talking the match style. You know, the sneaky win. He wasn't overly violent unless he was smashing somebody with his guitar, but his matches were sneaky. He was just a sneaky, creepy guy, and that's kind of stuff went over well. You know, I give him all his props. In my old age, I have nothing but admiration for the guy. He played his role
He was great.
superbly.
Now I can admit he was great. As a kid, I just wanted him to go away.
And here's a little PWI history. If you go back and look at the magazines, the Honky Tonk Man was Dave Rosenbaum's favorite wrestler by 50 miles. He loved the Honky Tonk Man.
I remember that. Yes.
He loved him. And when I came back from the Garden after Ultimate Warrior beat him in 31 seconds, he was literally seriously enraged. He really was. He's like, "How can I do that?" He didn't know it was a part one. He stormed him before the bell and all this other stuff. And he wasn't kidding. He meant it.
But the guy had a 14-month run. I mean, what more do you want?
Yeah, true. True. All right. If you could pick one arena to go to watch wrestling, what would it be?
An arena that I've never been to, or just any?
No, that you have been to that you would prefer to see wrestling in. That, like, ones you have the best memories of. It's probably going to be MSG, but I'll ask anyway.
It's got to be MSG. I mean, I'm so lucky that I grew up where I did, that MSG was a hop, skip, and a jump away, that I could go anytime I wanted, and that it also happened to be the most famous arena in the world, as they call it, and especially for ring sports and things. So, I mean, yeah, outside of the Garden, I might say the Manhattan Center. That was a lot of fun because
it was.
I went to the first Monday Night Raw, and I was at a few others after. That was such a cool place to see wrestling.
I was there too. I was there for the first two.
I can't tell you how many people I've run into who have told me that. Oh, I was there too. I was there too. To imagine how many people were there. That I know Mike Johnson was there. I mean, people that were there, it's really incredible.
But here's the thing. They had let the magazines back in then. That was the time when they let the magazines back in.
They were desperate. They were desperate.
Yeah. Yeah. They needed publicity no matter how they could get it. So,
yeah.
All right. Your favorite match of all time. If it's got does anything pop into your mind when I say, boy, this is the best. I'll never forget this.
Well, I'm annoying with all these qualifiers, I know, but
it's all right.
A match that I saw when it first happened, or, you know, a match that I saw live. I have a few different.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
That doesn't matter in this case.
I have a few.
If you had to sit down and go, I want to relive this match, what would you pop into your DVR or whatever?
I have a few answers to that. A few. Okay. So I would have to say, I often say my all-time favorite match is Ric Flair versus Harley Race in the cage at Starrcade 83. Now, I was not a fan yet at the time, but that is always a great, great, gritty match I love to watch. I know sometimes people criticize me for picking that one because they're like, what's so special about that? It's sloppy. It's messy. They screwed up the finish. It's not, you know, and to me, that's part of it. I like the rough, sloppy nature of it. I love that it's got Gordon Soley and Bob Caudle, which is like a super team. It's a super team of wrestling commentators. That's a big one for me. I love the Jerry Lawler, Terry Funk, I Quit match.
Of course you do.
That might be my all-time favorite thing that has ever happened in wrestling. Just the first time I saw it was on a tape. I was trading tapes, and all I knew up to that point really was the WWF. So to see something like that, it was like somebody who has been blind their whole life and can suddenly see. I watched that. I said,
Are you
boy,
referring to the I Quit or the Empty Arena?
I'm sorry. Did I say I Quit?
Yeah.
Empty Arena.
Okay.
The Terry Funk, Jerry Lawler, Empty Arena match. Lance, my eye, that match. That thing, it fascinated me. And the main reason is Terry Funk. I mean, he goes through this roller coaster of emotions in that match. How could you not love it? As far as matches that I saw during my time as a fan, you got to start with Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage. That's the boring answer that everybody gives. But again,
Me too.
WrestleMania 3, I can't stress enough to people, you didn't see matches like that in the WWF at that time, where that match set the standards. 40 years later, they still do matches based on that match, where it's like a million false finishes, fast moving. You think that this is the end. It's not the end, over and over and over and over again, even though the match is only 15 minutes long. That was my reaction as a kid, was I have never seen something like this before. So that one's got to be up there. I always say the best WrestleMania main event of all time to me is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock in the Astrodome at WrestleMania 17. That, and partly I was there live for that also, but the raw emotion and energy and intensity of that match, where it really felt like two guys that were desperate to win and beat each other. There's so much intensity in that match that I love it so much. And I have one more, if I may. I know there's a lot of answers to this question. The greatest match I ever saw live might be Bret Hart. It was on a house show in the Nassau Coliseum. Bret Hart versus Owen Hart doing an Iron Man match. They called it a marathon match. And it might have even been 90 minutes, not 60 minutes, because it was a house show, so they had no concern for time. And I think a lot of the crowd, I have to say, got bored, because you know how those fans were back then. They didn't care about the wrestling. They just wanted to see crazy stuff, and they wanted to see colorful, funny things. And so an hour of Bret Hart and Owen Hart, is maybe not their cup of tea, but to me it was. And I think there's footage of it on YouTube. I think you could see the whole match, but it was amazing, especially for a house show. I'd never seen anything like it.
I can't even imagine it, to be honest with you.
It was like they did it as a way. I think it was sort of like they were feeling out the match type in preparation for maybe doing Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. They were seeing, how could this work? Could Bret really do this?
All right, so there's 5 of your favorite matches.
I'm sorry, okay? It's hard,
that's okay.
It's hard to pick one.
No. There's a little history lesson in there, and that's what we're here for. All right. Your favorite year in wrestling, if you could pick a year, what would it be?
All right, this all depends on your age and when you were a fan. You know what I mean? Like, my answer is going to cause other people to nod their head and say yes. It's going to cause other people to laugh in my face and say, are you out of your mind? My favorite time were the years when the business was sort of like going downhill. I don't know how else to say it. So I think my favorite all-time year as a young fan, oh man, it may have been 1992. Now that I think about that, because I really loved that window of time in WCW between when Ric Flair left, not because he left, but when Ric Flair left and when Hulk Hogan arrived. That little window from mid-91 to mid-94, to me, is like a golden age. I love the WCW of that time, even though they were a hair away from bankruptcy through most of that. I didn't care, just from a creative standpoint, from a wrestling product standpoint. So 92 for them, you had Vader coming up. You had Dustin Rhodes, Rick Rude, Ricky Steamboat. You had great stuff. The light heavyweights were doing their thing. The Dangerous Alliance was hanging on. You had that kind of stuff. And then in the WWF, you also had, Hogan, the hold that Hogan had was slipping. So you had Ric Flair, you had Sid, who was really interesting. By the end of the year, you had Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were heating up. Shawn Michaels had just turned. It was the year of SummerSlam in Wembley Stadium. There was a lot going on, the Legion of Doom. And so to me, even though both companies would not say this about themselves, 1992 was my favorite year as a young wrestling fan.
I think Joe Puccio lists 92 as one of his favorite years. And to me, it will always be my least favorite year.
See what I mean?
Because I'm working for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and I felt like I was working the police blotter at my first job in a newspaper.
Yeah.
Because it was nothing but bad news
I know.
all year long.
No, you're right.
And has nothing to do with the in-ring product, of course. I don't know. It was like I was literally seeking out, other journalists to find nuggets about arrests or deaths or steroids or this or that. It was pretty rough. It got to be like a real news reporting job.
To me, it felt like a very experimental time when a lot of new things were being tried out of necessity. So in the WWF, Hogan was faded and done. I mean, I know he wasn't totally gone till 93, but they knew they had to shake things up and do different things. So it was like a post-Hogan thing happening. And then in WCW, it was very much a post-Flair thing. Flair was gone. The Horsemen were done. This entity of Flair, and to a lesser degree the Horsemen, that had anchored WCW and Crockett Promotions going back to the late 70s talking about Flair, was now gone. So they really had to think outside the box. And I think, not all of it worked, but it was exciting to see both companies trying dramatically new things.
There you go. Here's a whimsical question for you. I don't know if you... I'm going to try it. You've gone to your share of arenas, even as a journalist for PWI and things like that. What's your favorite arena food?
Okay. So I get really shocked these days when I go to some of these arenas and it's like the food is too good. You know what I mean? Arena food is not supposed to be like this. I go to the Garden and I feel like I'm on Tavern on the Green. I'm going to get something to eat. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I'm going to give a very simple, boring answer. The greatest food. I loved them so much that it was actually a main reason I look forward to going to the Garden would be the giant Sabrett jumbo hot dogs that the Garden had back then. It was like the greatest hot dog in the world. It was literally, I would be going there going, okay, we're going to see some great wrestling. We're going to have those amazing hot dogs. We might have like a Carvel, chocolate vanilla. I know you're big with Carvel. They had the Carvel stand. I was a very simple man. I might go to the souvenir stand, maybe get a T-shirt or something. And it was just a great, great way to spend a night or an afternoon.
I am in total agreement with you about the Sabrett. They were fantastic. Number 2 was the giant jumbo hot pretzel.
Oh, yeah. But you see, I'm very spoiled with that because since I grew up in the city, those pretzel guys were everywhere. So it was a lot easier to get those than it was the Sabrett hot dog.
And you know what? Those pretzels are available at every sports arena, but they don't have that charcoal taste you get with the outdoors ones, which really adds to the flavor of the pretzel. And it's no good for you, but I love it anyway. So
I love them so much. The more salt, the better. When people would get them and brush all the salt off, I'd be like, no. I want more salt on my pretzel.
There you go. Right. I kind of agree with that. All right. Now you're an esteemed author at this point, practically legendary.
Somewhat.
But what's your favorite book that isn't one you wrote? What's your favorite wrestling book?
My favorite wrestling book that isn't one that I wrote, I would say is probably not one that a lot of people know about, and it's Drawing Heat.
Me too.
Drawing Heat, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. So Drawing Heat is about a very obscure topic, okay? It's written by, I think he was a psychology professor, Jim Friedman. He hung around the Ontario indie scene in the late 1980s. Not exactly the first thing you'd think of. So he's going to all the Bear Man shows. He's hanging around with the Sheik. He's hanging around in the last vestiges of Toronto wrestling and things like that. And so the thing for me that made it is his writing. So like I'm a writer. I love to read and I love to write. And it's more than just about a love of wrestling for me. If I was not a wrestling guy, I would still be writing books about something. And I love to read plenty of other books that aren't wrestling books. So for me, I really enjoy the way a book is written. It's more than just a collection of facts or information. You know, I hate one of the worst things. I hate when people go, well, I didn't learn anything new from this, as if the only value of a book is that it's just data that you could absorb. You know, there's something to be said for writing style, prose, how enjoyable the book is to read. And to me, Jim Friedman's book, Drawing Heat, is the best written wrestling book that there ever was. Like it has a great literary flair, and I enjoy reading it so much.
We had a copy at the PWI offices, and I spent, right when I started there in 88, I think, I spent my lunch hours reading the book gradually.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, here's what I thought even then. They got the sheet to talk.
The only time
Right.
time that there's ever any written record of his thoughts and things, it is the only time. And on that note, actually, it's funny you say that, because the book is so good and has so many passages that are so incredibly good that I found myself, if you read Blood and Fire, there's a lot of quotes in there from Drawing Heat. I had to stop myself because I was pulling out these long passages and quotes that were so good. And I had to stop and go, okay, look, can't overdo this, because this is my book. This isn't Drawing Heat. If people want to read all this, they could read Drawing Heat. I can't quote the entire book in my book. But that book is so good that I wanted to just quote so much of it. I couldn't help myself.
I don't blame you. And I will say this for you listeners out there. If you want to read it, it's not hard to find. It's a Crowbar Press, I believe.
Yeah, they reprinted it. Yeah.
Yes. And it's vital. If you're serious about wrestling, read that book. Seriously. And at the time when it came out, late 80s, I believe, groundbreaking. Absolutely
80s.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. The time is important too, because there weren't a lot of books like that. This is like 10 years before Mick Foley. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely true. You work for PWI. You write for Inside the Ropes.
Yep.
You were with WWF Magazine.
Yep.
Before that, what was your favorite magazine?
Wrestling magazine?
Yeah.
My favorite wrestling magazine. Before I was writing for any wrestling magazine, my favorite wrestling magazine through the 90s was Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you know, I always consider the 1990s to be the last great era of wrestling magazines, because after that, then you get the internet coming in, and then you get the slow death even of magazines in general, which I witnessed. I had a front row seat to that. The 90s was the last gasp, and PWI at that point was the leader of the pack. I mean, already by the 90s, the number of wrestling magazines was dwindling, and PWI was the leader of the pack. But another boring answer, I will say, when I first started watching wrestling as a kid, it was WWF Magazine. So I first discovered PWI in 1991. I'll never forget my first cover, because it's a bizarre cover. It was that illustrated Hulk Hogan cover with the American flag after he won the belt from Sergeant Slaughter. I've never said this out loud, but the first thing I noticed was that he has an enormous package in that illustration. It's so ridiculously, it's the first thing you look at, and I'm like, what is this?
I was working there at the time. I don't remember that. I don't remember looking at it as well. Lower regions, I guess.
Well, maybe that's my problem, but it was just, I'm not saying it was not a bad cover at all. It was just a very unusual cover, and it really stood out, and it grabbed my attention, not because of the package, but just because you didn't see a lot of like painted wrestling magazine covers at that time.
No.
And so I'm looking at it now. It was the June 91 cover. And yeah, he has the tiniest pair of trunks imaginable in that painting. But that was my first one. And, but before that, from 87 through 91, my number one wrestling magazine was WWF Magazine. I bought it all the time. In fact, I would say in like 91 and 92, even 93, I was definitely buying it every month. And of course, like everybody says, the one drawback, well, there were a few drawbacks. The more deep you get into being a wrestling fan, the less satisfied you would get with that magazine, because they only covered one company. They never really talked about anything history related, and everything was really lockstep in whatever the company was trying to market, which is nice when you're 12, but when you're 17, you kind of see through that, you know?
Well, I'm getting the gooses because you read my work back then, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
So
yes.
So I didn't know that we jibed in terms of, when I was writing and when you were reading. So
That
that's
was the
kind of cool.
lineup. When I was reading, it was you, of course, Bill, and it was
Craig.
it was I don't know. When did Craig leave?
Oh, Craig stuck around through the Pennsylvania years,
All right, so yeah,
for a little while, but it was myself,
Dave
Apter,
Rosenbaum.
Dave Rosenbaum, Andy Rodriguez, Chris Bernucca at the end.
Yes, I remember him.
Stu would pen his editorial on PWI. And am I leaving anybody else? Oh, Eddie Elner.
Eddie Elner. That was my time, that era you're describing. So you still had the big three. You had The Wrestler and Inside Wrestling as well. I think Sports Review was still around.
They were all around.
You had Superstars of Wrestling. What was
Yes,
Wrestling Superstars?
Wrestling Superstars, Wrestling Annual,
Wrestle America. What about
Wrestle America. Let's go down the list. And
there was a great one that was short-lived. It was called The Wrestling Analyst, where they would like compare different wrestlers in this very like scientific kind of way. And I guess I could see why it wouldn't last long because it was a little dry, but I loved that sort of thing as a young fan. And I also remember Wrestling Classics. Of course,
Right.
For me, that was amazing. Like I remember, I still have the one I bought that talks about Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair on the cover.
You know what made me sad? I didn't even remember this until recently. They renamed Sports Review Wrestling. And they either became Wrestling's Bad Guys or another generic name or something like that. But it said Sports Review under the title, so they didn't have to change the thing with the distributors.
Yes. When I was at WWE, when I started there, we had WWF Magazine and Raw Magazine. And later on, it became WWE Magazine. But the idea was WWF Magazine was the storyline kayfabe magazine. Raw Magazine, I wouldn't call it a shoot, but it was more like a worked shoot. We could talk about the real guys. We could talk about history. We could even reference other promotions. It was more adult. So somebody got it into their bright head about 2003, somebody way above our pay grade, when they did the brand extension and you had Raw and SmackDown. Some idiot picked up the magazines one day and said, why do we have a Raw magazine and we don't have a SmackDown magazine? And somebody had to explain to them that, well, first of all, this came out before SmackDown existed. Second of all, it's not really about the show Raw. It's more about the tone of the magazine. They didn't want to hear it. So they forced us. We had to get rid of the work shoot Raw magazine. So Raw magazine would then become a total work just based on Monday Night Raw, the TV show. And then they introduced SmackDown magazine, which was going to do the same thing for SmackDown. Now, they didn't want to rock the boat with the distributors, like you said. So all they did was they took WWE magazine and they turned it into SmackDown magazine. So if you looked at the masthead and all the legal mumbo jumbo on the bottom, it would say like SmackDown magazine, like the first issue would say SmackDown magazine, volume 27 or whatever it was, because they were continuing from WWE magazine. And I was the managing editor of that. I wasn't even allowed to say on the cover first issue because they didn't want to run into problems with the distributors because it technically wasn't the first issue.
But it didn't say WWE magazine anywhere on the cover?
I think they were able to get away with it because it was WWE SmackDown magazine was technically.
Well, there you go.
It was technically the title of it. Yes.
Right. It's amazing.
Ridiculous.
Those were the days.
Yes.
Those were the days. Now, favorite female wrestler?
My favorite female wrestler, I would have to say, I think it might be Rhea Ripley.
I said the same thing.
I think it might be Rhea Ripley because, when I was a kid, I would latch on. There wasn't a lot, like Bob, there wasn't a lot of women's wrestling. And so I remember really loving Medusa. And then when she came to the WWF as Alundra Blaze, because her matches were great and they would steal the show and they were really good. But it was so rare to see good women's wrestling. To me, when you went through all the Trish Stratus years, and I was there for that, and Lita and all that, there were a lot of great talents, but they were generally overshadowed. And it was still part of it was still about the cheesecake and everything, as good as they were. And it was okay. In this new era we're in now, for the past few years, it really does feel like the women's wrestling is just wrestling. It just happens to be women instead of men. Like one of the things that Jim Cornette says, and I know sometimes it gets interpreted as an insult. I don't think it's an insult, is like wrestlers like Rhea Ripley, they wrestle like men. And Because what they mean by that is they just work in a great style. They're not just saying, I'm a women's wrestler and I'm going to work the women's wrestling style. I'm going to work the women's wrestling spots. She works like a wrestler, and she's not the only one. There's a lot of great talents today. Charlotte, amazing. I think Bailey's got incredible natural charisma. Jade Cargill has the dynamite $1 billion look. If she can't, if she can figure out how to do everything else, it's money in the bank. But you have people like that. But Rhea Ripley to me is the epitome. She's like, I mean, I don't know if I wouldn't say it at this exact moment, but there were definitely times where Rhea Ripley was the most over wrestler on the show. And that's really saying a lot for a female wrestler.
My dog Bella agrees with you. Just in case she makes it on the tape. All right. I'm not sure yet. We'll hear during the playback.
I just recently posted my old interview with Flying Fred Curry to Shut Up and Wrestle. I did this interview with him like 4 or 5 years ago. And when I played it back, I realized that I could hear my old dog, Gus, in the background barking. And we lost him about 3 years ago. So that was a little bit unexpected to hear. Yeah.
But, I'll say another thing, too, about the women's wrestling.
Yes.
I grew up during the Moolah era where she was kind of controlling who was running around and she would book them and all the other stuff. And if you saw a women's tag team match, they were always the same match. I'm not putting down the competitors. They were all trained in a certain way.
They were terrible.
The
matches were terrible, though, Bob. They were very bad matches.
But they were all the same size, the same style. Those wild Hellcats, how they would, right? That's how they would promote
Lots of hair pulling. They all looked like truck drivers because God forbid, Moolah's fear was always that they were going to hook up with all the guys on the road. So let me tell you, there was no danger of that. I can assure you of that. But the thing about it was never taken seriously. It was kind of looked at as a joke. That was the problem. I remember now, when they put all these championship wrestling episodes on Peacock a while back,
right,
from 80, 81. Now, when they run these shows, what they don't include is the voiceover when Howard Finkel or whoever would jump in.
Right. And they would silence.
Yeah, they would talk about the upcoming show. So you just hear total silence, which you were not meant to hear. And I'm telling you, I can't remember the episode it was, but they had a ladies tag team match with Moolah and the gang. And during the silent part, they're off mic, but you can hear Vince and Bruno making fun of them. You can hear it. It's very quiet. You could hear them laughing. And you could hear even Bruno, who's such a nice guy, you could hear them just going like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like you could actually hear them. You could hear their eyes rolling at what they're watching and how bad it is. You weren't meant to hear that.
I watched a lot of that Joe McHugh era stuff before they took it off. And now I can't go back and look because they took it off and it hasn't been added to the WWE vault at all. So
there is a great YouTube pirate channel, I got to tell you, where a guy, I don't know how long he's going to get away with this.
I saw it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He's posted all the Peacock WWE Network old vault stuff. It's pretty wild. Catch it while you can.
I'm going to definitely do that now that I know it's there. What's your favorite old school territory when there were territories?
I've got to say Mid-South. Mid-South Wrestling.
Yeah.
Mid-South
it's getting a lot of votes, by the way, in these shows.
Mid-South Wrestling, I felt like, I went down the rabbit hole when the WWE Network first launched, like 12 years ago. It's terrifying. But at that time, I would watch it, or whenever it was, I don't know, was it 2017, whatever it was, I would binge watch these things and I couldn't stop. I'd be up in the middle of the night watching one episode after another. And I don't generally binge watch TV. I'm not one of those people. I just can't do it. I can't watch more than 1 or 2 episodes in a row of anything. And I would sit there and watch one after another. The way that Bill Watts mastered the idea of episodic weekly wrestling television was incredible to make you want to keep watching. Plus, on top of that, having great workers, a lot of decent matches. Even the squash matches were, you wouldn't even call them squash matches. The preliminary matches were fun to watch because these guys really knew what they were doing. I mean, look, Arn Anderson, Marty Lund was a jobber. Okay. That's all I've got to tell you about how good the matches were there. They had him as an enhancement guy. Okay. So it was so compelling. Bill Watts, let me tell you, there has never been, I'm not going to say he was the greatest commentator of all time. There has never been a wrestling commentator who was better at explaining and getting over the storylines to the fans, making them understand what they needed to remember, who they needed to cheer for, who they needed to boo. He was brilliant at doing that. It was such a skill. And that to me is the epitome of territory wrestling. Even though it was sort of at the tail end of the territories,
Right.
that's the epitome.
I also think Watts was the ultimate star creator too.
Yes, yes. He did. Think about how many people he made that went on to even bigger things, even if they were already kind of something before him. I mean, he made the Midnight Express. The Rock and Roll Express had started in Memphis, but he made them bigger than they were. He made, of course, JYD. We don't even need to say it. He made Jake the Snake Roberts. I mean, so many guys.
Hacksaw Duggan.
Paul Orndorff. I mean, that became big because of the way he handled them. And even years later, he tried to do it in WCW with Ron Simmons, but he wasn't there long enough to really have a long-term impact, unfortunately.
No, it's true. A lot of that was of his own volition, but we won't get into that right now.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. All right. Finally, if you had a TV show from the past and you could see one series, regularly weekly series on television about wrestling, which would it be?
Well, I mean, I sort of gave away my answer with the other one because I think it would probably be Mid-South Wrestling. Here's the thing. I hate to say this because I grew up in the Northeast and I'm a WWF guy. If you watch their TV from around the same time, watch Mid-South 80, 81, 82. Watch WWF TV in that same time. There's no comparison. I hate to say, if you take nostalgia out of it, there's no comparison. The WWF show is comparatively dull. The best thing about it for me is it's like comfort viewing. To watch WWF wrestling from 80, 81, 82, you're a baseball guy. It's the equivalent of, to me, a quiet, warm, sunny day. You're out in the yard with your black and white TV watching a baseball game where there's not really too much happening, but it's just very relaxing and comforting. You're having a glass of lemonade. You're maybe talking to a friend. You're paying half attention to it. It makes you feel nice. That's what watching 81, 82 WWF wrestling is to me. It's like comfort viewing, but it's not like when I watch Mid-South or when I watch Georgia, that's another big one. Georgia Championship Wrestling 81, 82, 83. I am locked in, invested in what I'm watching. It's just insanity, but not insanity in the way that wrestling today is insanity, where nothing makes sense and nothing's over, and like insanity, but controlled insanity. So those two are big ones. I would say Mid-South Wrestling and I would say Georgia Championship Wrestling.
I cannot argue with the word you said. So why am I so doggone nostalgic for the very WWF period that you're talking about? Because it's like, it's what I was weaned on.
That's it. That's the reason.
That's it. And it never changed style.
Let me put it to you this way. Here's an observation. I don't know how you feel about this, about when you take nostalgia out of things. There are so many guys like us who grew up in this part of the country who will say, oh man, but the really cool stuff was that Southern wrestling or, whatever. I really wanted to see Memphis. Oh my God, Florida. Wow. When I saw Florida, they'll say things like that. You never hear ever, correct me if I'm wrong, you never hear fans who grew up in the South, let's say, in the territory days, who will go, oh man, when I discovered that 70s and early 80s WWF, man, that blew me away. That was way better than what I was watching. That was the stuff, man. Chief Jay Strongbow, man. They never, no one says that. You know what I mean? No one says that. And I think that says a lot for the power of nostalgia.
But being the codger that I am, you had to have seen, I'm going to defend Strongbow one last time on this show. You had to have seen him 72, 73, 74. It was a different wrestler.
And I think what also helped carry them was Vince McMahon Sr., he knew how to present wrestling as almost like it was boxing. He knew, like when you watched that weekly show, it was like you were hanging out in a local gym watching the local pug fighters on their way up. It really had to feel like you were watching boxing. And I know because I watched a lot of boxing as a kid.
What other wrestling show said, you're a timekeeper, Mike Midman?
Right.
Your physician at ringside, Dr. George Saharian, which was a mispronunciation on Joe McHugh's part.
That's right.
But they were the commissioner, James J. Binns. I mean, that went on for like 2 minutes.
And he was, by the way, he was the commissioner forever in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, he was.
He was still the guy. He was still the guy when they were wrangling in the late 80s over dropping kayfabe, to get away from the regulators. He was still the guy. He shows up in the movie Rocky V when Rocky is trying to get reevaluated to get his boxing license, even though he has brain damage. He sits down with Bins in the office of the State Athletic Commission in Pennsylvania to try to get his license. But that's how long that guy was around. But you're right. So they presented the wrestling as a gritty sport, which I think was to their benefit. The other thing was they had the mystique of Madison Square Garden. They were lucky that they had that because that carried it. Jim Cornette, again, being a Southern guy, he has talked about how incredibly bored he gets watching old Madison Square Garden cards. Now, I would never say that in a million years because it's the aura of the Garden and New York City. It's that it's Abe Beam, Ed Koch, dirty old New York City, the crowd, everything that it has going for it. I'll put it to you like this. If you took a lot of those matches and a lot of those cards and put them in a different building, far less memorable, number one. Number two, can you imagine if you had the type of wrestling they did in Florida and Georgia and Memphis and the Carolinas, and that was the wrestling that was in the Garden? I personally think it would be 1,000 times more of a bigger deal today than it is now.
But you know why that would never happen? Right back to the state athletic commissions. They would never allow that in New York and Pennsylvania. Right. They wouldn't do it.
No, and that was part of why it was the way it was. It was much more kind of prosaic and old school. And, when you hear these hilarious things like you can't wear a mask, you can't have women wrestle, you could never get too violent. You're right. You're absolutely right. It was much more controlled. And, but that also helped give it the aura of a real sport. So, you can't, there's good and bad with everything, right? When you watch Madison Square Garden wrestling, even in the territory days, Madison Square Garden wrestling feels more like a sport than watching wrestling in the Mid-South Coliseum. Even though you may say the Mid-South Coliseum wrestling is more exciting, the Garden wrestling feels more like you're watching a sport.
But the Mid-South would never book Silvano Souza versus Dominic DeNucci.
No, they would not. No,
that would not go over there at all. So it's always such fun talking to you, man. It's good to see you on this beautiful morning when we tape this. Hype yourself for me. Won't you tell the listeners how they can obtain your books, anything you've got going on? The floor is yours with the podcast, with PWI, with Inside the Ropes. I don't know when you sleep, and you still have time to talk to me, and that's why I appreciate it so much.
Well, okay, thank you so much. First of all, I guess the first thing I want to say is people always ask me about getting signed copies of Irresistible Force, the Gorilla Monsoon book. I have some left, so if people want to buy them directly from me, get a signed copy, you can reach out to me at brianrsolomon@yahoo.com or just find me on social media. On Twitter or Instagram, I'm Brian R. Solomon. And on Facebook, there's the Facebook group for my podcast, Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian R. Solomon. That's a good place to find me. And there's also the podcast itself. So I do a weekly vintage wrestling podcast called Shut Up and Wrestle, where we have a different guest every week. Some of them are very well-known people in the business. Some of them are authors and historians. Some of them are people you may not have heard of, but the conversation always turns out to be fascinating. So that one is called Shut Up and Wrestle. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. I write for Pro Wrestling Illustrated every month. I've got 2 columns in there. One is The Lockup, which is about current wrestling. The other is The Way It Was, which is a retro nostalgia column. And I also write for Inside the Ropes. I really do think I'm the only person who has ever simultaneously written for 2 different wrestling magazine companies. I don't think anybody's ever done that before me. I'm jazzed about that. I get to, for Inside the Ropes, I write these really long history features, which I'm always very proud of. I'm just doing one. I just finished one today about wrestling heels. PWI you can get at pwi-online.com. Inside the Ropes you can get at insidetheropesmagazine.com. And the only other thing I'll say is I do want to plug this. So for Shut Up and Wrestle, my podcast, I also have a Patreon, which has additional content on it. Obviously, I don't charge for the podcast, but if you want all this additional stuff, I do watch along commentaries. I write some original articles. I have magazine scans and things. It's patreon.com/shutupandwrestle. and there is premium and free membership available. It's just a difference in what you're able to access.
There you go.
That's it.
And by the way, I'm still buzzing over having my name in a wrestling magazine for the first time in decades. I was in that recent edition of Inside the Ropes.
Yes.
And naturally, I wrote about the first year of the PWI 500, what it was like putting it together. And I finally got a copy, by the way. And I hadn't had a copy when Brian told me it was out. I didn't know it was out.
I had to let you know, right?
Yeah. And I will say it's just an honor to be. They put my name at the top of the contributing writers. I couldn't believe it. I thought it'd be buried.
Let me tell you something. Those guys over there, they're great. Kenny McIntosh, Dante Richardson, they are always open to ideas. They're very open. So you could probably pitch them stuff. I'm not saying they would go for it, but I mean, they're always open to things, especially from people that have a proven track record. Like, they've always been so good to me. I've been writing for them now for 6 years plus, and they're great.
They are great. I had the editor here, and he guested, and it was great. And his books are great. I mean, it is amazing. We are in the golden era of wrestling nostalgia books, and I'm talking right now to the guy who is the leader of that field. I don't know what to tell you other than your books are awesome. You're the coolest guy, and I want to thank you once again for taking your scant amount of time that you have free to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Bob. Thanks for having me. When I say to you, I'll come back anytime you want me, as you can see, I mean it. Those are not just words.
That's music to my ears, because this means a lot to me, both personally and professionally as a podcaster, because it's like I'm having fun. And I think that translates to our listeners, and I hope you're having fun too anytime you come on here.
Sure I am.
Brian R. Solomon, the one and only. Thanks again, Brian. Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with the elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, another outdated wrestling hour is in the books. I want to thank our special guest, Brian R. Solomon. Get out there and get those 2 books. Blood and Fire, the incredible real-life story of wrestling's original Sheik, and Irresistible Force. The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. You will spend many days happily reading them, and if you're like me, they will end up on the bed table next to your bed, and you will grab them when you think, hey, I got to look something up. It's those kind of books, but they're entertaining as well. Also, thank you, Joe Puccio, once again, for your usual stellar work. Always appreciated. Write to us, outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Speaking of that, I've been a little bit remiss. I am going to read you guys something. Remember we had a favorite things episode. I said, write in and give us your favorite things. Well, somebody did. I'm going to read them to you right now. And as I mentioned, if you want your favorite things to be read here on the podcast, I will do it. I will. All you have to do is write to us at outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Now, this is from Rich Richardson, a real radio professional, it looks like. Here are his choices of his favorite things. Favorite good guy, Kerry Von Erich. Favorite bad guy, Terry Gordy. Favorite venue, the Dallas Sportatorium. I see a trend there, right? Favorite match. Well, this is interesting. AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe versus Christopher Daniels. TNA Unbreakable 2005. Now, there's somebody who's looking at big pictures. I'm impressed by that one. And his favorite feud, Gentleman Chris Adams versus gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. Pretty cool. Thank you, Rich Richardson. We really appreciate that. Find me on Facebook. I'm only Bob Smith that sings with BB King. I'm on all the other social media apps as well. Outdated_Bob or Bob Smith. Threads and Friends and X and all of them. Instagram's pretty cool because, we've been able to figure out how to do little musical placards there. You might enjoy if you're on Instagram. I think I'm just Bob Smith on Instagram. And I like adding music to our little advertisements, as it were. And you might get a kick out of the choices that try to go along with the theme of the shows. Our website, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. Boom! All of our episodes are right there for the listening pleasure. And by the way, you can also find many of our more recent episodes at WrestleCopia.com too. If you enjoy some of their shows, listen to my show and their shows all at once. And at the beginning of the show, you heard a rundown of what they put out at WrestleCopia. So partake. But as I was saying, with most of the social media, Bob Smith or outdated_Bob, you'll find me easy enough. I use the same publicity photo I've been using for 12 years. It's just there. It's the best picture. I don't look like an orangutan in this picture. So there you are. By the way, if you're really into the podcast, we have this podcast and the Outdated Entertainment Hour podcast. And you can join the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club, which covers both shows for a nominal fee of like $3 a month if you can afford it. You can help perpetuate the ongoing adventures of this show and the Outdated Entertainment Hour podcast. It really does help. It really helps us with our production. We've been able to move forward in ways that I didn't dream of doing when I started the podcast about 3.5 years ago. So again, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. A lot of cool stuff on there. A lot of things to read too. You might enjoy it. Can't think of anything else right now, so I think we've had enough show. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Brian R. Solomon. Thank you, Joe Puccio. Thank you to all of you who listen on your favorite podcast apps. And you know what? If you could subscribe or hit a like button or whatever it says on your favorite app, it really does help, and I really would appreciate it. As we continue to try to grow this program, we've already grown past the point of anything I could have ever anticipated. But you know what? There's always room for more. And you know what? For fans our ages, tell a friend verbally. A lot of the people who listen to the show like to watch on YouTube or whatever, and it's a situation where they don't want to get involved with a lot of electronics and things like that. So just tell a friend. We're easy to find, either online with apps or websites. There's some websites. It's like podbay.fm is a pretty cool site. It's actually a website. It's meant for using as a website, and they have all your favorite wrestling podcasts, including ours, on there too. All right, enough of my blathering. My name's Bob Smith. A long time ago, I was with Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I want to thank you for hanging in with me all these decades. And in the words of Ringo Starr, peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.